Hello, fourth form, how are you? Today we're going to continue reading Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, the second part of chapter 8, from page 124 till the end. I turned to Mr. Denberg. Will Fudge be famous? I asked. No, not famous, but a lot of people would think he looks familiar, Mr. Denberg said. I turned to Mr. Vincent. Do you know he has no front top teeth? That's part of his charm, Mr. Vincent said. And he cut off all his hair 2 months ago. Well, he looks fine now, Mr. Vincent said. And he can't even talk in long sentences yet, I told everyone in the room. He doesn't have to say a word, Mr. Vincent told me. I couldn't think of any other reason why Mr. Vincent shouldn't use Fudge in his Toddlebike commercial. It was settled. Soon, Fudge would be a famous television star and I would be plain old Peter Hatcher, fourth grade nothing. Let's begin right after lunch, Mr. Denberg said. We should get it filmed in about 2 hours. While my father and Mr. Denberg worked out all the arrangements, I asked Janet where the men's room was. She walked me to it. I told her thank you and that she didn't have to wait. I'd find my own way back. When I was safely inside, I looked at myself in the mirror. I wish Fudge had never been born, I thought. Everything good always happens to him. If he had to be born, I wish he could be 9 or 10 like me. Then Mr. Vincent wouldn't want him to be the one to ride the Toddlebike in his commercial. Janet sent down to the coffee shop for some sandwiches and drinks. After we ate, we all walked to another section of the agency where the cameras were set up. A make-believe street scene was the background. The Toddlebike was shiny red. My father told Fudge all he had to do was ride it around. Fudge liked that. He zoomed all over the place. Vroom, 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 he called. My father, Mr. Vincent, and Janet sat on folding chairs and watched the action. I sat on the floor at my father's side. Mr. Denberg was the director. He said, "Okay, Fudge, we are ready to begin now. You ride the Toddlebike where I tell you to, and I'll take a picture of you doing it. All right?" "No," Fudge said. "What does he mean, Hatcher?" Mr. Vincent asked. "Why did he say no?" My father groaned. "Look, George, using Fudge was your idea, not mine." Mr. Denberg tried again. "Okay, Fudge, this is it." The cameraman said, "Start riding this way. Ready, set, go." Fudge sat there on the Toddlebike, but he wouldn't pedal. "Come on, kid, let's go," the cameraman called. "No, don't want to," Fudge answered. "What's with this kid, Mr. Hatcher?" the cameraman asked. "Fudge," my father said, "do what the nice man tells you to." "No, don't have to," Janet whispered to my father. "How about some cookies, Mr. Hatcher?" "Good idea, Janet," my father told her. "I have some right here," she said, patting her handbag. "Shall I give them to him?" "One at a time," my father said. Janet walked across the room to Fudge. He was still sitting on the Toddlebike. If you do what that nice man says, you can have a cookie," Janet told him. "Show me," Fudge said. Janet held up a box of cookies. She was really well prepared, I thought. She must eat all day long. What with the crackers shaped like goldfish and a whole box of cookies too? I wondered what else she had in that handbag. "Give me," Fudge said. Janet held up one cookie. Fudge reached for it, but Janet didn't let him get it. "If you do what the nice man says, you can have a cookie, maybe even 2 or 3 cookies." "First cookie," Fudge said. "First do what the nice man says," Janet told him. "No, first cookie." "Give him one, Janet," Mr. Denberg called. "We haven't got all day to fool around." Janet gave Fudge one cookie. He ate it up. Okay, kid. All ready now? The cameraman said. You ride over to me. Fudge didn't do it. Mr. Vincent was losing his patience. Hatchard, he hollered. You get that son of yours to ride my toddle bike, or I'm taking my whole account away from you and your agency. Must I remind you, George, using Fudge was your idea, not mine, my father said. Forget about whose idea it was, Hatcher. He's your kid. You better get through to him. Now. I have an idea, my father said. He walked to a corner of the room and beckoned to the others. Mr. Denberg and Mr. Vincent gathered around him, along with the cameraman and Janet. They looked like a bunch of football players huddled together talking about the next play. Soon my father called me. Peter, would you join us, please? Sure, Dad, I said. What is it? Peter, we want you to ride the toddle bike for us, to show Fudge how it's done. But he already knows how to ride it, I said. Didn't you see him zooming around? He won't do it for the cameras, though, my father explained. So we need your help. Will I be in the commercial too? I asked. Well, the toddle bike is really for very young children, Mr. Denver said. Otherwise, we'd have you do it in a minute. I got the message. It was like buying the shoes and like at Dr. Brown's office. They were going to use me to get Fudge to do what they wanted him to. I wondered how anybody would ever manage my brother without my help. I walked over to Fudge and told him I was going to ride the toddle bike. Get off, I said. Fudge held on to the bike. No, mine. It's not yours, my father told him. But Fudge wouldn't move for anything. He closed his eyes and screamed. Can he scream loud when he tries? So my father had to pull him off the toddle bike. Fudge kicked and kept screaming, and I'll bet Mr. Vincent was sorry that he ever spotted my brother in the first place. I got on the toddle bike. It was so small my knees practically touched the ground. But I managed to ride it around just where the cameraman told me to. See how nice Peter can ride the toddle bike, Janet said. Here, Peter, come have a cookie. You did that so well, you can have 2 or 3 if you want. Fudge stopped screaming. Me, he said. What? My father asked him. Me, ride, me. You can't ride as well as Peter can, Mr. Denberg said. Can so, Fudge told him. I don't think so, Mr. Denver said. You already had a turn. You didn't do what I told you to do. Me! You want to try again? My father asked. Again, Fudge said. Again. Well, I don't know, Mr. Denver said. Well, Mr. Vincent said, chewing on his cigar. Well, the cameraman said, scratching his head. Please, Fudge begged. I never heard my brother say please before. Mr. Denberg said, Okay, we'll give you one more chance. Fudge ran to the toddle bike. I got off and he jumped on. Now, he asked Mr. Denberg. Now, Mr. Denberg said. Right this way, Fudge. Over here towards me. Fudge did as he was told. Just like Peter, he said. See? Just like Peter. Janet gave me a kiss on my cheek. You saved the day, Peter Hatcher, she said. When she wasn't looking, I wiped my face. Her kiss was too juicy.